Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Sophia from the Code for All team, and I want to welcome you to our second Civic Tech and SDGs webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. This new series is all about how civic tech and the UN Sustainable Development Goals are related, and how civic tech can be used to address and help come closer reaching these goals. Conflict, insecurity, weak institutions, and limited access to justice remain a great threat to sustainable development. In this session, we're going to discuss civic tech initiatives dedicated to promoting peace, justice, and strong institutions, and their direct contributions to SDG 16. If you want to read more about civic tech or the SDGs, there are links in the description that go into more detail. If you aren't familiar with who we are or what we do, you can find links in the YouTube chat to read more about us. In a nutshell, Code for All is a global network composed of civic tech organizations from around the world. And our mission is to connect these organizations so they can learn from each other, leading to a greater impact in their local communities. So whether you're new to civic tech or the SDGs, or you're a fan of both, and you're curious about how these two worlds collide, you have come to the right place. So before we start, I'm going to go over some housekeeping points that are important. During this session today, we'll start by hearing from each of our speakers. Following this, we will ask some questions that we have collected from our community via Twitter and Instagram. So if you also want to ask any questions during this webinar, you can type them into the chat window on YouTube, and we'll try to address them during the conversation if we have enough time. And a recorded version of this webinar will be available at codeforall.org and in our YouTube channel, so you can watch it later and share with your colleagues. So having said this, it's time for us to start. Today we're holding our third session of the series, which we're very excited about, and we would like to welcome our 5 amazing speakers. I'm going to welcome John Ringatunga, East Africa Program Manager from the Sentinel project. We have Julio Herrera, Director of Red Ciudadana, Mariana Neves, Governance Statistics Specialist from UNDP Oslo Governance Center, Martín Corvera, Head of Projects and Innovation from Ciudadanía Inteligente, and we also have Natalia Carfi, Executive Director from the Open Data Charter, who is going to be joining us a bit later due to a professional commitment, so we'll see her later on. So having said this, I'm going to start by sharing the microphone with John, so you can start the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody in East Africa. Good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm John. I work for the Sentinel project as the East Africa Programs Manager. The Sentinel project mission is to actively assist people worldwide, wherever they and whenever they are faced or threatened by mass atrocities, through cooperation with the threatened communities and the innovative use of technology. So over the years, we've done a couple of projects. But the main one that I'm going to talk about as a case study is Unahakika, which is in Kenya. We've done a similar project in Myanmar, and we've done similar project in South Sudan and also DRC Congo. So the Unahakika itself is a Swahili word for "Are you sure?" And it's a project that we've done for close to 10 years now. We deployed this project in a small district in Kenya called the Tana Delta, where we have the Orma pastoralists and Pokoma farmers living side by side. So around 2014, this project was created in response to the clashes between Orma pastoralists and Pokoma farmer tribes, which left over 170 people dead. At the time the clashes, we visited the Tana Delta in order to investigate the causes of violence and how this could be prevented. So among the several factors, including tribalism, politics, and resource conflict, it was very clear that rumors played a very significant role. Rumors, misinformation were leading to distrust, fear, and hatred between these communities. So this situation enabled violence as people had rumors about rival communities, poisoning their water supplies, receiving arms shipment, and planning attacks. We saw an opportunity to contribute to long-lasting peace and security in the area. So this enabled the creation of the Unahakika project, which is an ICT-based information service that engages the residents in monitoring, verifying, and countering the spread of harmful rumors and misinformation. So the how the system works is that community members subscribe into the system and interact with it through a variety of channels, which include SMS, social media, and a network of community volunteers that we trained. We call them the community ambassadors. And the system itself operates according to 3 basic steps. So the first one is rumor monitoring or data intake, where subscribers report rumors and emergencies anonymously and free of charge using an SMS shortcode that we've set up, or through social media. And they can also report directly to one of our staff members or volunteers. The second stage is the verification stage, where our core team prioritizes incoming rumor reports. For example, anything relating to peace and security is considered as a high priority and is investigated within a very short time. And the investigation is done through reaching out to trusted sources such as other NGOs, government stakeholders, and community leaders. So we have a bit of partnership with the government. So at times with high priority peace related and security challenges, we notify the government organs for action. And then the final stage is counter messaging. So once Unahakika team has determined whether a rumor is true or false, these facts are reported back to the community along with other important information. So this information can be sent on a mass scale across the entire county or targeted to specific village and demographies. In some serious cases, other stakeholders are engaged for real-world violence prevention and peace-building efforts. So far, we've received over 50,000 SMSs and we've worked on them. And after analysis, we noted that about 40% of the rumors that we received were true, 33% were false, and then we have about 27% which were impossible to verify. And as I conclude, we've learned some lessons on, and this we call the principles of misinformation management. So one of the lessons is that any misinformation management project must be responsive. So that means provide information based on what subscribers request, react to community needs instead of broadcasting a one-way information flow. The second one is that it's important for such a system to be targeted. That means sending counter messaging back to specific locations or group that have reported these rumors or reports, and that minimizes the unintentional spread while also ensuring responsiveness. The third lesson is that of sensitivity. So it's important to account for local dynamics, engage relevant stakeholders, and use appropriate communication channels, especially during verification and counter messaging. And then finally, it's important to be very timely. That means prioritizing and verify rumor reports as quickly as possible, since misinformation can travel quickly, especially with the aid of information and communication technology. So I'm going to stop at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to pass the microphone over to Julio.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me to this event. Awesome to meet lovely people around the world that is working in the Civic Tech movement and is doing great things. Thank you so much. As you mentioned, my name is Julio Herrera. I am the current director of Ciudadana. We are a nonprofit organization in Guatemala that works in civic tech, using technology, accountability, and citizen participation as a way to promote an impact in our country. We think technology is a great tool, a mean to an end, and it can help us provide a more accountable and more transparent governments. Today, pretty much, I wanted to talk about a little bit of the work we have been doing and how it can be connected to the SDGs, especially to the justice and strong institutions part. We have been working and we've seen that through civic tech, we can help to strengthen the work of public service delivery around all the government as well. We can help and we can create this virtuous cycle of work with different stakeholders like civic tech, academy, government, civil society. And through that, we have been creating some of the projects. But specifically today, I wanted to share a little bit about Open Justice Initiative, which pretty much is the application of the open state or open government work through the justice sector. Traditionally, the justice sector has been one of the most closest and most formal and authoritarian places to work. So it's quite hard to see how citizen participation or civic tech can connect in this part. So through this open justice initiative around the world, they have been some very interesting improvements, and they're trying to reduce the gap for citizen participation, accountability, and collaboration around the world. So for us in Guatemala, it's very interesting to see how civic tech is helping the justice sector to be more transparent, more accountable, and how we can connect this through the SDG. So as I'm sharing the screen, this diagram, we're trying to promote these 3 pillars: transparency, collaboration, and participation, trying to have information, for instance, open so citizens can see them, but also they can participate, and then they can make recommendations on public policies, for instance, to understand how things are going, to have access of this information in the justice sector. They can also participate and co-create proposals to improve the work that the justice sector has. For instance, one of the biggest challenges, I think, in what we have in Guatemala is the access to justice. There's still a lot of people that is not able to access to justice. There are far away offices, and enabling more information and more opportunities online through civic tech, it can help them to reduce this gap, as well as monitoring evaluation to provide indicators, information regarding how the justice institutions are performing. It's very important. So that's part of the things we have been moving forward. There are some key, I think, areas that can be targeted to this SDG 16, especially trying to make things accountable, access to information, as well promote the rule of law and access to justice. In Guatemala and Ciudadana, we have been working on 2 main projects with the civic tech regarding the Open Justice Initiative. One is regarding creating access for information, making data available so we can create public policies. So we have created an open data portal for citizen participation, where we gather all the information from institutions. With this, we are trying to provide data-driven decisions, hopefully in the justice sector, but also with having a registry can help us to understand better how everything is flowing in the country in one hand. And in the other hand, we are also using civic tech as a way to make the elections of the current judges and magistrates accountable. We have all this information online, all the information about the candidates, all the information about the process, and what we try to make a big spotlight around who is running, who is making the decisions, how things are going, and try to translate it to civic tech, to apps, through different ways, visualization, to be enabled to citizens can understand how things are moving forward, how we can make it more transparent and accountable. And when they make the election, at the end, we gather all this database of all the candidates and the elected judges. And we have right now 2,000, I think, profiles of the justice sector public officers that is enabling us to understand who is running and who's making the decision and what's his history, how he was selected to join this part as well. So in these 2 parts, we're working very in the past 5 years, trying to promote technology and how technology can provide more accountable government in the justice sector. And finally, we also try to keep the flow of data. There's a lot of people that doesn't understand how the justice sector works. I am one of them. I'm an engineer. It's hard sometimes to understand how justice works in our countries. So we're trying to create more information, more data and indicators to show how things are moving forward in some of these institutions, how they are performing. And so we're creating dashboards that it's enabling to do that. So that's my part. Thank you so much for inviting me, and we can keep the conversation.
Thank you so much, Julio. And very interesting what you just mentioned of we sometimes don't know how our systems work. Yeah, like in Mexico, it's very complicated also, the justice system. So I think it's starting by that point is something very, like it's something very important we should be doing. So thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to pass it over to Mariana.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the very exciting presentation, Julio. I'm Mariana Neves from UNDP Oslo Governance Center. We are the custodians of some SDG 16 indicators, some of them already presented by Julio. So firstly, what a custodian means is that we are responsible, one, to create the methodology to measure the indicators under certain SDG 16 indicators. We are also responsible to harmonize the practice. So whenever we also adopt or develop a methodology, make sure that it is used more or less as much as possible in a similar way across countries. So we don't have fake discrepancies. We are responsible to support the countries on trainings, capacity building initiative, technical assistance, all related to the SDG indicators. And for last, we are also responsible to request data to all member states and non-member states to follow up on the SDG 16 indicators. So this to inform the Secretary General report, both the glossary report and the specific report. So specifically, which indicators we are work on is the access to justice. So a specific access to dispute resolution mechanism. It is a very new indicator with a very new methodology since 2020. We've been mostly investing in increasing capacity of national actors, particularly the statistical office, but increasingly we have to broaden from that. The other one is satisfaction public service, so 16.6.2, representation, participation in public service in judiciary, and the last one, which is maybe one of the most relevant, is the external political efficacy, that it measures the connection between the state and the population. So we have at this moment several initiatives, mostly, as I said, directed to the national counterpart, specifically to the National Statistical Office, although we've seen more and more an increased collaboration and cooperation between the NSOs and National Statistical Office and National Statistical System with the entire ecosystem, that ecosystem on their country. So we have been working on first promoting that this dialogue exists between the NSOs and the other counterparts, particularly on the SDG 16 survey initiative, which is a specific survey designed to collect most survey-based indicators. We have not advanced much more yet on the methodology for other types of methodology. I must say we are almost at the beginning. This regarding citizen science. And for citizen science, we have just started, I think, a few months ago, and we are working mostly on external political efficacy. And also to help us understand the work most of you are doing, including those here on this call, we have initiating a mapping of several innovative approaches to measurement, to data management, to data archiving. This is available online, and we have also some time ago requested if anyone has experiences that they want to share. This is really the best moment, particularly the experiences that they can be replicable in other countries or under circumstances. Because at this moment, UNDP Oslo Governance Center is going to initiate the next phase for the next 4 years. We have 5 different fields that can be informed by your work and the work of all of us, specific on data, research, knowledge management, communication, and innovation. So thank you.
Thank you, Mariana. Thank you so much. I'm going to pass it over to Martín.
Thank you very much, Sofia. Well, I am Martín Corvera from Fundación Ciudadanía Inteligente, a smart citizenship foundation. And now we are working in a project that I would like to share with you, which is called La Constitución es Nuestra, which is, give me a sec, here is it. So, just a briefly context about Chile. To start, we are an NGO that is working in the last 15 years using technology and civic tech to to make advocacy and also to strengthen the democracy in Chile and Latin America. And one of the main lessons that we have learned during these years is that technology by itself does not solve problems of democracy. It needs always projects and political movements behind it. So in that context is that we have been working in several projects, and one of those is the one that I'm coordinating at the moment, which is called La Constitución es Nuestra, which means the Constitution is ours, and it's a platform to strengthen the capacity of NGOs and civil society organizations to generate solid constitutional reform proposals. In second place, to support advocacy on political and constitutional issues, and to inform about the most important democratic process in the last 30 years, which is this constitutional process that we are living at the moment. So just a briefly context, if you're not aware, in October 2019, there was the biggest social movement in the last 30 years in Chile, which was about several causes and several dimensions that people mainly was asking and demanding for social justice, dignity, and some minimum rights about education, health, pensions, and so on. As a response on that social movement, there was a political agreement in the Congress of Chile that decided and proposed a new constitution process. And that new constitution process started last year, and is the first constitutional process through a democratic constitutional assembly in Chile, and is now about to finish, which is gonna end the 4th of July, which when the assembly will offer to the country the new text. It's important to say that this assembly is composed by gender parity rules, and also with some seats secure for indigenous population. So in that context is that we launched La Constitución es Nuestra, which is a project that is considering the NGOs and social movements, the mobilized citizenship, the marginalized groups that want to add to make advocacy as well, or that are not considered in the political discussion. And finally, in the bottom of the circle, we have assembly members, which the idea was to create advocacy in them in terms of propose to them some constitutional reforms today to include in the text. So we created this digital platform, La Constitución es Nuestra.cl. So I will share with you afterwards, which basically in the beginning was this digital open and collaborative platform to create the proposal, to make it visible and connect them with the Constitutional Assembly members. The idea that was that the Assembly members could read the proposal of the citizenship in this platform and to include them in the commissions of the Assembly to discuss about it. So in this first moment of the project, in the second semester of last year, we received 260 proposals from more than 30 organizations and citizen groups. And we also realized that it was not only about digital platform or infrastructure, we also needed some presential and live events. So we created also workshops and civic labs to create proposals with different groups. So one of the things that we learned is that this new institution, the Constitutional Assembly, was a very young and new institution in Chile with not any previous context about it. So we had to be flexible to adapt the project into the institutional content that we had. So for example, we had to create the project to not only be part of our platform, but also to offer to the Constitutional Assembly our project for the official, I don't know how to translate that, but basically it's like popular proposal of the people through the official assembly. So we put our infrastructure, our code to help the Constitutional Assembly to receive the most participatory part of the process, which was that people could create proposals. So at the end, was very interesting to realize that as a civic tech project, we adapted our project to help the official the official mechanism or methodology of the assembly to receive the proposal of the people. And a lot of these proposal, 77, were part of the discussion of the assembly, and some of them will be part as well in some way of the final text that we will vote in September. So now we are working just to finish in the last part of the project, that is to make visible the articles of the new constitution for the people to vote and to understand what is voting. At the moment, in the first draft of the constitution, we have almost 500 articles. So we selected around 100 articles to share in a translation to the people to understand. And for that translation, we invited the organizations to answer a little form that we created with key questions about the main daily life issues, and about also human rights standards, social rights standards, natural rights standards, internationally speaking, to understand if the new constitution is guaranteeing that. And we created this visualization, and we have time afterwards, I can share with you as well the website, which is laconstitucionesnuestra.cl. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin. Yes, we're going to put the links to everything that our speakers have shared in the description. So you can check it out in there. And thank you so much. I have to say, like, the process Chile is living is very inspiring for the rest of Latin American countries. So thank you so much for sharing it, for such an amazing project. I'm going to welcome and also pass over the microphone to Natalia. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, everyone. Sorry for being late. I just arrived to Amsterdam and just got my hotel room. So here I am. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me share a little bit about the Open Data Charter and what we've been doing as far as open data and the SDGs. So for those who don't know us, the Open Data Charter, it's a global civil society organization that works with governments and civil society organizations from around the globe, promoting 6 principles of openness of data. What we've been working on in the past 4 years is promoting also the idea of publishing with a purpose. So understanding that open data is a means towards another end and not just an end in itself. So we don't want governments filling in with any data, open data portals just to have a check on their lists, a green check on their lists. We want to understand which civic problems we are going to try to tackle by opening up data. And in that respect, open data can actually be part of several of the SDGs. Aside from the work at promoting these principles, the Open Data Charter has a series of themes that are part of our core work, and each of those themes actually work through one of the SDGs. So, for example, we've been working on gender pay gap, and within that work, done a double click to understand and create care economy indicators. it was mesmerizing to see how the spotlight was put on care economy during the pandemic, but there's not one set of indicators to understand the full extent of it. So we worked with Buenos Aires city government to try to create indicators to understand and actually create data-driven solutions through collaborating with not only the statistics office of the city of Buenos Aires, but also with civil society organizations that work with the elderly, with childhood, and with people with disabilities. So who are the primary primary groups that the city actually works with within the care economy policies. So through a participatory process, we brought up those care indicators. So we're actually working on one of the SDGs on that respect. One of the other themes that the Open Data Charter works on is anti-corruption. It's a pretty, if you would say, old agenda for the open data community, but it's still a very big one, an important one, because corruption hasn't gone anywhere, and we still need to work on that. We've been working with several countries to understand which are the high-value data sets that governments should open in order to develop an open data for anti-corruption agenda. And through the collaboration with another civil society organization, we created a tool that is called the Open Up Guide on Anti-Corruption that actually explains and tackles 30 key data sets that governments should open. Of course, these 30 data sets actually mean different things within the priorities agendas of the different countries. Whenever we work with governments, we also work with civil society organizations from the country that we're working on. And the anti-corruption agenda is so big that we need to understand the priorities, both from governments and civil society organizations, to promote transparency in the way that the data is going to be open, and also understand and manage the expectations, because there's technical bits that should be addressed, legislation that should be addressed, and so that's one of the other themes that we work on, and you could say that that work is actually part of SDG 16. We are also working on open justice, so it's to understand how to actually open up data on judiciary powers, which is quite a challenge because they're not known for being super open and innovative pretty much everywhere. So we're trying to understand there, once again, what are the high-value data sets, what are the most demanded data sets, if there are standards of data that could be promoted throughout different countries and different levels of governments in order for that data to be comparable, to understand what's going on in different parts of the world. And last but not least, one of the main topics that we work on also is climate change. Once again, collaborating with another civil society organization, the World Resources Institute, we created an Open Up Guide. Then I'll share through the links through the chat that actually addresses which are the high-value data sets that should be open in order for a government, once again, to tackle an open data for climate change policy. We actually implemented that guide at the same time in 2 countries, and we found out really different results, of course. There is priorities, context matters, there is demands of data that are different depending on the context, of course. We also understood that there were some data sets that were lacking in the first version of the Open Up Guide. So that's why we always say that they are not written on stones, and understanding what high-value data sets means is an ever-evolving conversation. So by promoting open data, by promoting publish with a purpose, by promoting transparency as part of a key way of developing open data policies, we are promoting also transparency through SDGs. We also collaborate with different open data organizations that work specifically with NSOs, which are kind of the main holders of the data, the main coordinators, if you will, within different governments of the data that is being sent to UN as regards as SDGs. There's this conversation going on about data governance in many, many countries where you have open data offices that are not necessarily part of the NSOs. So we're trying to help build those bridges and create that collaboration between those different areas in order to promote better transparency, better interoperability, better comparability of data around SDGs and around, of course, every topic. Thank you very much. I'll leave it here.
Thank you so much, Natalia. So I have some questions that we collected, as I mentioned, from the audience. I'm gonna share them. It's gonna be open questions, so if you wanna participate, just open your microphone. So the first one would be one of the biggest challenges SDG 16 is facing to promote peaceful, just, and inclusive societies are the lack of available data on many indicators, which is one of the things that you have already mentioned a lot. So how are your projects building new partnerships and identifying innovative data sources to complement official statistics, as well as innovative data collection tools and methodologies? So I'm gonna also put it here in our chat so you can take a look at it. And the room is open for any of the speakers who wants to take on this question.
So I'll go. I just finished, but I'll go and get started. I think one of the main things that we are working on, and I think it's very, very important. I don't think it's that innovative, if you will, but this connection between the NSOs and all the other areas of government that actually create data that are not statistical data, it's super important. So working around data governance and how data governance within governments, it's designed, and the legal part, and the legislation bit, but also the technical part. There are interoperability platforms, standards that can be used. Of course, we will promote open by default as a principle because we're the Open Data Charter. But I think that work takes time. We always say that open data, it's a cultural change. You need to understand it in that way. Of course, there's technical challenges and here and there, but and cultural changes take time. So like promoting that conversation, promoting that collaboration, I think it's critical for this conversation.
Thank you, Natalia. Mariana, you wanted to share something?
First, I want to second everything that Natalia said, and second, so we collect the data globally, and we have a strong partnership with the other UN agencies, particularly UNODC and OSHR. So the first thing for us, I believe, is the partnership, as Natalia said. The NSO is not a natural collaborator of some of the data produced. So one part of our work is actually identifying and helping explain who is the actual data producer is, and how the data should be collected. And for that, we do some massive trainings. And so far, we have done 3. One for Africa, and one for Latin America, and one for Asia. The Asia was the biggest one. We had around 609 participants throughout 8 weeks, and with around 80 countries involved. So a lot of Asia, but also non-Asian countries participated. And this, we go through the methodology for each indicator. One of the very important things is that this was not done for the NSO alone. This was done also between the participants. We had a lot of civil society, we had a lot of very diverse group of actors, because it's the citizen that drives the demand and that drives your government. So it was important that users participated on these trainings and also can critically assess the data that their governments are using. The other part is maybe smaller, is that the SDG, we have a data gap, but we have even a huge data gap on the survey-based indicators. The indicators there are not on measuring quantity, the indicators that are measuring your experience, your perception. So on this part, we produce a new methodology, but there's a lot more we need to do to make this connection. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Julio, I saw your hand up, but I don't know if you want to share something.
I think they talk everything about it. Just very to add, justice sector are very complicated. They're not that open by default, so it's quite hard to start creating or trying to use this information. In our experience, we need to partner with some of the civil society organizations, academy, to try to collect some of this data, and we have used crowd sourcing as well as a way to try to gather and collect new information about the justice sector. But we use a lot freedom of access of information as a way, and we try to translate it. It's not the best way because we can make a lot of human errors there, but that's the where we're trying to work right now when we don't have the information available, unfortunately, pretty much.
Thank you. Yeah, especially, and I think also Natalia mentioned this, and the justice system is very complicated to get the information. It's not something that necessarily governments are opening voluntarily. So it is quite challenging. And speaking about challenges, our next question goes a bit about that too. So what have been the biggest challenges when collaborating with local governments, and how do you make sure the collaboration generates long-term impacts that produce structural changes in the current governance system?
Okay, I'll go again.
Please, go.
So whenever the Open Data Charter works somewhere, we've worked in Uzbekistan, in Ecuador, so we've worked in like places that seem not to be that similar. We always work with government and civil society organizations, and I think that collaborating with both kind of the data creators, which for us are the data that is created by government, and the data demand side. So academia, civil society organizations, data journalists actually starts to create wherever there's not, or helps expand an open data community. That then will kind of advocate for openness, for open data, if there's, for example, changes in administration that might slow things down as far as open data, or they could also say when government is not doing things right. So we do think that collaborating with civil society, it's part of our key work that we can do aside from collaborating with governments.
Thank you, Natalia. Julio, do you want to share something?
Sure. We have been working in the past 2 years, 3 years with local governments in Guatemala. We have a project here with the United Nations Development Program, where we have been working in some municipalities that have been hit because of the COVID, but also there are some big hurricanes here in our country, so we were affected. So one of 3 things I think are very important to this, I totally agree with what Natalia said, is the importance of creating collaboration between civil society and government, right, to work with both of them. We have a higher rate of rotation or change in the public sector. So you can see someone in the following months is not going to be there. So it's very important to work and try to create a lot of data literacy trainings, workshops, a lot of tools, resources that can be help them and move forward. If someone is new, they can gather this information as well. In the past, Guatemala has a very important legal framework that's very important in the local administration. That's a way we have been seeing to try to promote sustainability to some of this innovation in the public sector initiatives. So we're trying to create a legal framework about the creation of open data, for instance, around the executive branch as well and local governments and more direct. So that has helped us to assure that things might move forward. If not, they might get an administrative sanction or something regarding this, but this helped us to assure this. And then the last thing, I think civil society plays a very important role promoting this. I think that Natalia from the Open Data Charter mentioned about the demand and supply. Civil society stays there in the following years, even there's a big change of the administration. If they follow up with how things are moving, how you're publicating, how you're creating changes, and how we are making sure that this innovation goes forward in the future, I think they play a very important role. So it's important to take them part of every process we do with innovation, and especially in local governance.
Thank you, Julio. John, you want to share something?
Yeah, thank you. So briefly, on our project, since we focus mostly on crowdsourcing data for violence prevention, when we were starting our project, there was a time when the local government wanted to take over our project. So claiming that the data that we were supplying belonged to the government. There was a point when they needed us to provide back-end information, which was a risk to the privacy of the participants. So that was a major challenge to us as an organization. But then how we've worked along together is that for every information that we receive, there is always need for intervention. So there are some information that come to our end and we share with the government, and then they intervene. For example, security challenges that might lead to deaths and harm to the local communities. So that's how we've been collaborating, having information, sharing with them what is relevant, and then having the government take action.
Thank you so much, John. And now speaking not so much about government, but moving more into local communities, we have a question from the audience that goes, how does your project and organization provide more agency to local communities and individuals for them to actively be involved in decision-making processes, but also for them to have deeper knowledge of all the government processes and how this works? So I see, Martin, you have your hand raised. You can go and take over.
Yes, it was for before, because I wanted also to talk about a project that we have that is called Abre Alcaldías, which means kind of open municipalities, and we have been working, which is very interesting because we started working only with activism in the beginning, and then we realized that the tools also needs to be put in the public employees. So now we are creating these workshops where we mix, and also is connected with the third question, where we connect on the one hand the people who is trying to advocate into public administration, but at the same time creating the culture within the public administration to receive the communities to work with them. So that mixing in one workshop is creating a lot of richness, I think, in the way to understand how is the political decision should be made. Following the third question, I would like to add that I think that this constitutional process in Chile has been an opportunity and also an illusion for a lot of organizations like us to put these causes and agendas that we have been working on through several years into a constitutional text. And in that sense, we understood that people were claiming for social and human rights in the social movements, not only in 2019, but also before, through several protests and organizations asking and demanding for several causes. And we have been trying to create the infrastructure to connect these causes into the political decision. And we have learned a lot in terms of that a new institution like a constitutional assembly, a democratic constitutional assembly, we have to remember that all the constitutional process in Chile were in authoritarian moments, so not in democracy. So this opportunity to invite the communities to participate, and in that sense, you have on the one hand to create the information to understand a very difficult constitutional process, which has a lot of technical things in terms of the votes within the commissions, to understand some legacy things and stuff. And on the one hand, we have been trying to inform with documents, with infographies, with videos, and on the other hand, inviting the people also to follow the journey of the advocacy in the beginning, to create a proposal that maybe is not like in constitutional language, but then you move with the help of us to more constitutional proposal for the assembly. And now is the moment to understand how the new constitution have the social rights solved or not, to vote informed. And also it's important to say that the communities are being also victims of a lot of fake news that maybe you all know in all the countries and in all these projects, because the misinformation of this more political decision information, especially in countries that maybe civic education is not part of the curriculum of the schools, right? So these are like a space for misinformation and fake news. So we are fighting for that in order to inform the community. So I think it's very challenging to create this advocacy mixing with information, and also to understand that institutional process create mistrust for the people. So how to make people to really trust that the proposal for the new constitution could be really an opportunity to assegurate some social rights. So yeah, I would say that. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Martin. Very interesting, and as you mentioned, like I think Chile is in a very it's a very particular moment you're living in. From that on, it's gonna be like a whole revolution, not just for Chile, but like it's gonna be interesting to watch from the rest of the world. I don't know if any other speaker wants to share something around this last question. If not, I'm just gonna go over the last one that we have so we can go and close this session. Okay, so we have one last question, but this one is for Natalia specifically. So is there a reason for not considering all data related to the SDG indicators as high value data sets?
Absolutely not. But the thing is, we have to prioritize in order to create an implementable open data policy. And that's why we worked with civil society organizations and governments to understand which are the first tier of data sets that should be open. And then, of course, open data is an ever-evolving policy. So no, there's absolutely not a reason. We're just working on trying to create implementable open data policies and be able to collaborate and understand priorities wherever we work. If we know it that if we say just open up everything that you've got, nothing is going to be open. So we'd rather work on understanding the priorities, both from the data demand side and the data creators side, and create these tools that address high value data sets first.
Thank you. And it makes total sense at the end. Like if you, as you mentioned it, if you say open everything, then nothing is going to be open. And it's something that at least in Mexico, we see it a lot. So I think having these priorities, it's something important for as a place to start, like is the first steps. So I just want to thank you so much. That was the last question that we had also. I don't want to go over the time, but I want to thank you so much. Thank you all in the audience. Thank you all our panelists, and for being here today for this session, for sharing your projects, your ideas, and your experiences with us. A few things that I want to mention with the audience before we all sign up. We are very excited to share that we just launched our call for proposals for the Summit 2022, and it's open until July 8th. So please go ahead and share with us your ideas for sessions. We have different formats and we have different teams. Right now, this year, we're focusing on combating climate change, fighting authoritarianism with community and tech. accessibility and inclusion in civic tech, and building community engagement. So if you have a session idea, you have a project that falls into these themes, we invite you to share and submit your proposal. And we're gonna also leave all the information about this in the link in the YouTube chat. And yeah, just a reminder, the deadline is on July 8th. I hope that you all participate, apply, and we're gonna keep you posted on more news around that. And that's all on our side. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. And thank you all of your speakers. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Nat. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, Mar.
Gracias, gracias. Bye.
Gracias. Bye.
Gracias.